Talking Music with Big Andy. In this week's podcast, Birdeatsbaby, Talking Music with me, Big Andy. Hello and welcome to the podcast. I'm Big Andy and I have with me Mishkin. I'm sorry, I've forgotten your last name.
That's okay. I have several. It's Mishkin Fitzgerald.
Mishkin Fitzgerald from Birdeatsbaby. Hi, how you doing?
Hi, I'm fine. How are you?
That's
all right.
I'm fine, thank you very much. Right, so you are the lead singer with Birdeatsbaby, and the main. Do you do most of the songwriting and the?
Yes, I do. Yes.
Yeah, I thought so. Okay. Now, I've seen you listed as being a UK prog rock band, but I'm not sure I would class it as prog rock.
Yeah, it's pretty hard to class us, to be honest. I mean, we cross a lot of genres. I would definitely say our music is progressive, but when I think of prog rock, I think of like 70s, like psychedelic synthesizer bands, and that's definitely not what we are.
No.
So I'd say it's more accurate to use a few genres to describe us, and that would be dark, alternative, progressive, bordering on metal, alternative rock, I guess.
Right. Yeah, I mean, it's definitely obvious that it has a dark side to it, and with some of the videos and that sort of thing, almost kind of horror elements.
That's right. Yeah. Some of them are a bit, a bit in your face.
there's also an element of. I've interviewed a couple of bands in this who kind of do a very kind of theatrical sort of almost. Sort of like a cross between sort of a burlesque and a sort of like showman type thing, you know, kind of almost circus or carnival type stuff. And there's an element or two of that kind of thing in your music. There's sort of like the theatrical show side of it, if you like.
Yeah, definitely. When we first started out, the music that we were writing was like part of the cabaret scene. You know, the music, we didn't really have any guitars. It was more just piano and violin, vocals, a bass, you know, and these kind of and drums. So there was no like extra layers to it. So it definitely sounded a little bit carny. My music's influenced a lot by Jewish music as well, like klezmer. So I think that's where a bit of the sort of carnival folk sort of weird scales kind of came from as well, and it just blended together this way. But as the band's developed, we've just made it heavier and heavier on each album with more and more layers to make it stretch from just like cabaret to now like a big theatrical rock sort of sound.
As I say, I mean, well, looking back at, I've looked back on the videos and the tracks you've got on YouTube and a couple of other places, and you can definitely see the progression of the music, if you like, as you go through it. So you were formed in 2008, is that right?
Yeah, I mean, I think we played a show in 2006 even as Birdeatsbaby, but it was a 3-piece and we didn't really, you know, have a band as such then. So yeah, it's been going a really long time, but we got serious in 2008 and we launched our first album in 2009. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I wrote down a few things on here. You had an EP called China Doll came out in 2009.
Yeah, that's right. Or maybe 2008 for the EP, and then the album Here She Comes a Tumbling came out in 2009.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Here she comes a tumbling. And then you kind of you had some singles and things coming out, and then another album, Feast of Hammers, came out in 2012.
That's right. Yeah.
And then after that, you seem to have done one every 2 years from then, basically.
Yeah, every 2 to 3 years. They're getting longer now. They're harder to make. We used to just sort of record them as quickly as possible, get all the songs, make the videos and put them out. But now we're sort of taking a lot more time, making it, sound exactly how we want to before we just, put it out.
So what, I mean, saying that you sort of alt rock and as you say, almost verging on metal in some cases, and prog rock and folk rock, the classics and that sort of thing. What have your influences been when you first started? What were the...
So I got all my musical training from the church. My mum was a lay reader, which is like kind of one down from a priest. So I spent a lot of my childhood in churches, church groups, church choir, Sunday school, like week to week, singing really in choirs or in groups, playing the guitar, playing the piano in the congregation. And that's where I really absorbed all of the music. That was what we were listening to all the time. And then my dad had a bit more secular record collection, which was Queen, Jimi Hendrix, the Beatles, and loads of classical music and opera. So that was really where I got all of my early music from. But as I said, my grandma's Jewish, and she played accordion and piano.
Oh, right.
So she also used to play the piano to us when we were young. So that's kind of where I got my main influence from. So it's a whole load of really weird contrasting genres, but mostly, from church music and choral music. That's where my songwriting came from, and those are the songs I was writing when I was really young, were for Christianity basically. And then obviously you can see I've turned to the dark side and started writing rock music, but with this kind of really grand church-like sounding influence.
Yeah, I mean it's there are certain elements of your stuff that kind of remind me of some of the, although it's not on such a grander scale, but some of the symphonic metal bands.
Yeah.
Come out. It's got that same kind of feel to it. The way your vocals are, they're very big flowing vocals a lot of the time, and I think that's where what reminds me of that sort of stuff.
Yeah, when somebody told me about symphonic metal, I mean, I'd never really heard of it as a genre. I have to say I don't particularly like it as a genre. I don't think that the bands are bad. I just it's a little bit folky and kind of medieval sounding for me, and I really don't like that as much. I prefer, like, I don't know, when I think of metal bands, I like Tool, Perfect Circle, Gojira, bands that are a lot sort of heavier and not so kind of symphonic. Even though we've got a violin, and yes, we do have big string sections, and yes, it is quite grand. I don't think we could ever really classify ourselves as symphonic metal just because we don't sound that medieval.
No, I don't think you sound it, but it does have elements that are very similar.
Definitely, yeah.
But I really like what you do. I really do. It's funny doing this program. There have been a number of bands that I've come across that I've thought to myself, why don't I know about this band? Why have I not heard of them before? Because this is brilliant. And that was the way I was thinking. I was going through the videos on your YouTube channel, watching them, and as I was watching more of them, I was thinking, why have I never heard of them before?
I guess we're pretty niche, we don't really fit into a genre. It's kind of hard to find us, I think, because we do cross a lot of genres and we don't stick to one either. You could listen to one of our songs next to another one of our songs and you wouldn't even think it was the same band. When you look at bands like Queen and you listen to like all of their albums and all of their songs, they have songs that are like completely stripped back, like really silly cabaret tunes, and then they've got like full on really heavy rock stadium stuff, then they've got like these beautiful orchestral things. So yeah, I just think we're one of those bands that we don't really stick to the same thing, so it can be hard to find us if you're looking for a particular genre, because we're just not going to be there.
I think there's a lot more of that going on nowadays. People are breaking down this whole kind of like having to be pigeonholed as being a specific type of music, because it reins you in to a certain extent. You have to play this sort of music. You can't play something else, and it just you don't always want to do that. Let's watch a clip of one of the band's videos.
Tired of the bullet, you laid out your life in selections of photographs hung up to dry. Shoot through the middle and gather your points by protecting yourself from another bad choice. No one will care if you put out that light. You built just an army, but they would not fight. So then, speechless and void, you're just a memory stuck in the mirror with no exit strategy. You should move on, make a life of your own, get happily married and live in a home. But you can't sit still and you're certain it's true. There's just too many them and just not enough you. You're a rat in a cage, you're a bull in a china shop. Took center stage for the world just to spit you up. I say let's shoot back. Heaven above us and hell just behind. Nobody knows it, I'm just one of a million kinds. So sing if you're sorry for all that you see. Sing if you're just the same as me.
When I was going through, the first one of the first videos that I watched, actually purely by chance, it was just sort of a random choice, but I really liked it. It was called The Trouble,
Oh yeah.
and I watched it and I thought, wow, this is really good. And it kind of made me want to watch more to find out what other stuff he'd done, and but I really liked that. It was different. I think that was the thing. It was so different from anything I was listening to elsewhere that it just kind of stood out.
Yeah, that video is definitely responsible for putting us on the map. It was our first music video, first single.
Right.
And yeah, I think it still stands up. You know,
Yeah.
I'm still really proud of it, and it's got the most views and everything. And I think it, you know, if it's the first one that people see, that's great, because then they can go to something different and find out what the rest of the band, rest of it sounds like.
Definitely, I think it was great. I noticed you did an album of covers in 2018 called Claws. And I was one of the things that I was interested about that was that there were a couple of covers, or there's a few covers on your YouTube channel, and I'm old. I'm an old man, me. So I was really interested to see that you'd done a cover of Pink Floyd's "Wish You Were Here," which is one of my favourite Pink Floyd albums, and I really liked your cover version of that.
Thank you.
It's really a really good version. Was that something you included on the album, or was that?
I don't think we did actually include that on the album. The cover that we did was just it was recorded live on YouTube. We never actually recorded the parts, so yeah, it wasn't something that could really just stand up as audio alone. I think it's like a music video we made. But Gary's a huge Pink Floyd fan. They're like probably, you know, his biggest influence in his music and his guitar playing. So Pink Floyd is definitely an artist that we would say has influenced the band. Even, you know, if it wasn't my influence, it's definitely when it comes to Gary's guitar and bass playing, you know. Yeah, he was really influenced by that band, and that's actually one of our favorite songs anyway. It's just a brilliant song.
Yeah,
so,
it is such an atmospheric song. It's such a
it's beautiful,
such a feel to it. So at the moment, because I've noticed going through the videos that your lineup has changed a few times.
Yeah, definitely.
So at the moment, who else is in the band with you?
So it's still me and Gary. We were the original members. We were right there back when The Trouble was made. The drummer at the moment is called Anna Miley, and the violinist who's been with us for a really long time now as well is Hannah Parana, and she has her own band of like violin based heavy rock.
Oh, right.
It's definitely worth checking out. And Anna also has her own band called Dorja, which are like bluesy kind of heavy rock. Really, really cool. So definitely check them out as well if you can.
Yeah, definitely. I'll have a look at those, definitely. I was interested. The other cover version. Don't get me wrong. I like the cover versions you've done are very good and they're very different. There's some very interesting choices. What I like about them is the fact that the tracks you've chosen to do by the bands you've chosen are not the ones that immediately spring to mind by them. Mm-hmm. So you know it's nice to hear something. But the one that kind of stood out for me as being slightly different was your cover version of "My Baby Just Cares for Me."
Yeah.
because that was that came a bit out of left field. I wasn't expecting. I thought, oh, have they done this in their own way? What's this? And then it was just a straight cover, which was kind of like, okay, right.
Yeah, I guess we just wanted to prove that we could play jazz if we wanted to, you know, and just cover something in all its like original format. I mean, it's such a great song. I would feel like if you changed it, it would just ruin it. And I always had this vision of like Hannah singing a song, you know, and her fronting that song. And I thought this one would be the one where she could, you know, play the Jessica Rabbit style for the video, and just like, yeah, the rest of us could be jazz musicians. And it was just a bit of fun that kind of I always had in my head for a few years. I was like, I want to do this song. The piano part's really, really tricky, but really cool. The bass and the drums, everything about it, it sounds so simple and effortless, but it's actually a really, really difficult track. And I just thought Hannah's voice would be perfect for it. So we just did it for fun. And yeah, I think everyone was like, what? Are you playing jazz now? And we were like, yeah, but just for a minute. We'll go right back to metal.
I love it because it does show that different side to you. It shows not just the fact that you can play the different music and you can do different things and that sort of thing. But the other thing about it is that to an extent, a lot of your songs are quite serious, as we said, quite dark, and it shows this kind of slightly fun side, which I don't know any bands that don't have that kind of fun side to them somewhere, but it just kind of shows that you've got that, and it's nice to see that. It's really makes a nice change.
Yeah, I think with everything we do, we always can show, especially in our music videos, that we don't take ourselves that seriously, and that behind all of the like really aggressive, dark, introverted, sad music that we're making, that behind it all we're just, you know, a bunch of idiots just having a laugh. Anyone who's spent any you know time with us knows that. So yeah, we tend to get all of the like sadness and aggression out in the music, and then the rest of the time we're just idiots. It's fun.
So there were a lot of tracks I listened to that I liked of yours. Just got what have we got? Let me see. Look, I've just written down a list of tracks. Hands of Orlac, I really like.
Oh, cool! Yeah,
I like the video to that as well. That's a really interesting. It's an interesting piece. And one of the things that drew me to that is the fact that I'm very big into horror movies and things like that, and also especially into old black and white horror movies.
Yeah,
and Hands of Orlac was a Peter Lorre film.
That's right.
From many years gone by, so that kind of saw that title and thought, oh, what's that?
Yeah, that's a great film. I really love it, and the music from it's fantastic. It was just such a great concept for a song. Somebody told me about the film, and I thought that's got to turn that concept into a song and name it the same as the film. I actually have a cool story about the music video. So we filmed it in Germany. At this theatre that we've played at a few times. It was great. I was wearing this like big kind of rosary with like a cross at the bottom that was quite heavy. And during one of the scenes, we were rocking out, and I was like really going for it and jumping around in the crowd and headbanging and everything. And then we finished the scene, and like the cross had like bounced up into my forehead and cut my head open. And it wasn't a bad cut, but it was just, I don't know, it just was in like on my eyebrow or something, and my whole head just exploded with blood everywhere. And it was literally like pouring down my face all over. Everyone was like, oh my God, are you okay? And I was totally fine. But yeah, it was just this really dramatic, kind of horrific end of the music video. Yeah, it was pretty mental. But yeah, I just thought that'll teach me to wear a giant rosary. God will strike me down.
Yeah, that's quite incredible.
They will keep us spinning. Now you're saying things you've never meant. We're really not so different. We'll isolate the enemies and make them helpless just like me. Unlike my father, sire,
Painkiller I liked.
Yeah, that's probably my favorite.
That's a really,
honest.
really good song. And we've got Seraphim. That video is incredible.
That was another Savage video.
that video is absolutely incredible. I really, the makeup on it and the camera work is just so good.
Yeah, the guys who did that were absolutely incredible. But yeah, that was a really, really long, painful day. The wings were so heavy, and we had to do that shot so many times. By the end of it, I thought it was going to collapse, but it was amazing. I'm so pleased it came out like that, because it was so worth it, and all the actors were incredible. It was just, yeah, it was absolutely brilliant. That's actually one of my solo songs. That's not actually a Birdeatsbaby song.
Oh, is it? Because it's on the same YouTube channel. I didn't realize.
Yeah, I mean, it might as well be, like, everyone from the band is playing in it, so it's basically the same band. But I felt like that song was a bit too pop to be on Birdeatsbaby record.
Oh, I love it, to be honest. I think it's absolutely brilliant. I've got Esmeralda. I like the song and I love the video. It's the animation on that is, I don't know, it's really, really good. It's really,
yeah, the guys who did that are incredible as well. I'm going to try and do another animation with them for one of my solo songs as well. But they're a fantastic company, Omnivaca. They're based in South America. Yeah, they just did such an incredible job. I think they put it forwards for a few competitions, and hopefully it'll win a few awards with the local film festivals there, because I think it really deserves the recognition.
yeah.
But yeah, they said that maybe if we're lucky enough, it might get turned into a series. So Esmeralda might become a character for a cartoon series.
Cool.
Fingers crossed. Watch this space.
That's cool. No, it's got a great sort of story to it. The way that the animation is done, and the story, you know, the song itself and that, and it works so well done that way. It's one of these things where you can't imagine it being done any other way, if you like.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, the characters they go for that now. It's just that, to me now, that song is that story. Yeah.
So prior to COVID and the lockdown and all that sort of thing, I'm assuming you were out there playing lots of gigs everywhere and all that sort of thing. If you toured,
yeah, we've toured
throughout Europe
extensively in Europe. Most of our fan base is in Germany.
right.
And we have a lot of fans in Mexico and a lot of fans in America as well as the UK as well. But yeah, we were touring in and out of Europe like maybe 2-3 times a year. America once every couple of years as well, which was great. But yeah, it's a different world now. We're just waiting for things to open up again, and we don't know what it's going to be like. You know, the people that we were working with beforehand maybe aren't working in the industry anymore. Some of the venues are shut. Like, it's going to be a very different touring scenario for us.
How have you done throughout the whole lockdown and COVID thing? Have you been doing much work? Have you actually managed to do work on new material and stuff like that?
Yeah, the writing's been flourishing. So I've got a solo record coming out, which is already being released track by track on our Patreon page. And we've got a new album called Hex, which will be our 6th album, which we've begun recording. And that's going to be coming out on Patreon first as well. So the writing's fine, but yeah, no shows, no touring, not really selling any merchandise because of Brexit and COVID and all the rest of it. It's just kind of killed it's just killed a lot of the music industry. It's really difficult to make any money as a musician. So we're all working other jobs and, you know, doing session work, session recordings. Gary and me have opened a production business because it's the only thing that we can do really while we're still stuck at home. So we're producing other people's music now as well, just to make a bit of cash, and teaching music as well on the side. So we're doing okay, but it's really difficult to make any money in a band right now. Like, the band is only making money from Patreon. That's our only kind of income at the moment.
So, yeah, I mean, I know the whole COVID thing is starting to lift now, and things are sort of opening up gradually as we go, and it's going to make it easier to tour in the UK. And but even once things are open back up everywhere, I mean, the whole Brexit thing, the insurance and licenses and stuff you need now to tour in Europe, it's getting to a point where there are quite a few bands I know that are smaller bands who used to tour Europe at least once or twice a year, are now saying they don't know if they're going to be able to do it again, because they simply can't afford to cover everything.
Yeah, it's the same for us. Right now, we can't, you know, even if it opens up, we can't afford to tour Europe again. Like, how can we? We all have to pay visas. We have to pay tax on all our merchandise now. I mean, we've been completely shafted, you know.
Yeah,
It's just
yeah,
the worst thing that could have happened to us. I mean, it's hard enough anyway as an independent band. If you're not signed to a big label and you haven't got a lot of funding, everything you do is DIY, everything that you put in is your own money, and then you hope to make it back when you're touring. So you're already not really making a lot of money from touring, but you make the money from selling your merchandise. And now that we have to be taxed that, and the visas and the traveling and the insurance, it's just pointless. We just can't tour in Europe
no,
again for the foreseeable future. So yeah, all we can do now
yeah,
is just make records and just sit here, play shows in the UK, and just hope that things maybe change for the better in the next few years. But right now, it's just absolutely hopeless. Trying not to think about it because, you know,
yeah,
touring with my life. I've been doing it for 20 years, and
yeah.
now I'm sort of like stuck on this island, very unhappy about
I
it.
know, I know.
I
As I
definitely
say,
didn't vote for this, but there we go.
no. Well, there are a number of people I've talked to over this last year who have been saying that they don't know what their future's going to be because
Mm.
they don't know how they're going to be able to cope or to manage doing this. And it's something that they've all looked at as being their kind of career. This is their, you know,
Yeah.
from
Oh,
now on, this
completely.
is
Like
going to
our
be it.
plans was, you know, build up a fan base all over the world and then tour that fan base. And that's what we've been doing for 15
Yeah,
years. Now it's kind of like starting again from zero, you know, with less money. So
yeah,
it's just
yeah,
really, really difficult. But I guess at least, you know, we're lucky enough to be able to record music here. We're like, this is my studio that I'm streaming from right now. And I can make music here. You know, I can put out records and sell them, you know,
yeah,
through Patreon and online. And we're really lucky that we've got a group of people that, you know, our fans are really supportive and they're quite willing to pay money for our music and videos, which is incredible. But I really feel for the bands who are starting out now, or the ones that maybe don't have a Patreon or have like a lot of sales online. I don't know how they're going to make any money
no.
from doing music, live
I was
music.
going to say, I mean, one of the things, I mean, I've a lot of the bands I've talked to are ones that have only just started out. They've only been going like a year or less than a year. And I'm not sure this is a great time to start up a band if you want to try and
Yeah.
make
The
anything of it.
problem is though, it's like nobody starts a band because they think they're going to make loads of money.
No,
Musicians will always make music because we love it. It's a calling. It's not something that you do to make money because let's be
no.
honest, you don't make money as a musician.
I mean,
But
if
just
you,
making a living, you know, just making
yeah,
enough to get by, that should be something that every musician should be able to make within their first 10 years of setting up. You know, there is enough money there. People will pay for it, but it's harder and harder for the actual musician to get any of that, you know.
yeah,
So yeah, difficult times. But I think what we really need, if we're going to get into the nitty-gritty of the music industry, is we need companies like Spotify and Apple to start paying fairly and to stop taking people's money who pay for subscription, because everybody is paying for music now. Everybody has a subscription to Spotify or Apple or Deezer or Tidal. So people are paying for it, but none of that money is going back into the independent music scene. It's just going to the major labels and back into Spotify's pocket.
yeah,
So until that
absolutely.
changes, there's just not really anything the artist can do except for, you know, work other jobs, which is what I think, as far as I can tell, no matter how successful an artist is, everybody's working other jobs to fund their own music career, which is just crazy.
There's a part of me that hopes. I mean, at the moment, the situation we are in is kind of reminiscent of where we were in the late 70s, early 80s, where when at that time when all the first wave of like home recording studios and things like that came out, and it was all done on cassettes and things like this, it kind of opened up recording to a lot of people, and a lot of people set up the independent record labels and distribution networks and things like that. And I'm kind of hoping that now that things have had to have closed in a bit more again,
Yeah.
but we've now got this the technology so that people can record digitally at home and get stuff out there and all that sort of thing, that the same thing might happen, that there might be a kind of growth of independent record promoters, record distributors, or music distributors and promoters that are there for the bands rather than just for the money.
Yeah,
And
that would be great.
they were at that time, as I say, when the whole when the whole punk thing happened, and the people were recording stuff at home on cassettes, then it was just being put out on more cassettes, or if you were lucky, burnt onto a disc or something. But I'm hoping that something like that will happen now that it's sort of like it's kind of imploded a bit, and I'm hoping that will cause a growth of independent stuff going on, so that the smaller bands, the newer bands, and even more established bands like yourself can still find outlets for their music and still find ways of getting it out to the people.
Definitely.
And maybe then the bigger companies and the companies that are like Spotify and Apple and those sort of companies that are just out for the making the money will start to look at it and go, well, actually, we need to rethink what we're doing, because people are now moving away from us to these more independent.
That would really be the game changer. It's just like there's just a few companies in the music industry that kind of own everything, and it's sort of like, you know, the McDonald's and the KFC of the music world. It's just, you know, they're making huge profits and paying their, you know, their, let's call it their staff, you know, the musicians, the one who are bringing the actual product into the industry, absolutely like beyond ridiculous tiny amounts. You know, it's just there needs to be something set up where there's a law that says that if you're a musician that you should be able to be paid a minimum wage, because as far as I can see, it's one of the only professions where, you know, you basically get paid whatever you're told instead of whatever you're earning. Like we have, okay, so we're not a huge band, but we have like, I don't know, 15,000 listeners, let's say, every month on Spotify, but we're getting pennies for that. I mean, that's 15,000 people that are coming into Spotify's, you know, program and giving Spotify money, but why isn't the product being paid for, the musicians creating the product? So I think until that sort of changes and there's some laws put in for streaming that makes it actually, you know, fairer, then there's not a lot that can be done. But maybe we get other companies like SoundCloud are saying now that they're going to pay fairly, you know, and there's got to be other independent ones coming up, and hopefully they'll start to become more popular when people just want to have, like, let's say, ethically sourced music, you know. It's that kind of thing.
But it's interesting. It's kind of like there was, I don't know about now because it's all changed again, but there was starting to be a change in the way that venues were paying, because of the fact that for a while there was this whole thing of like, you know, the amount of bands that I know who were, even after sort of 10 years of touring, were being approached by venues to play and saying, oh, well, I can't give you any money, but it will be exposure.
Getting paid exposures.
It's like, as a friend of mine said, if you had a plumber coming in to replumb your premises, if you own a pub or a club, you had a plumber coming in to replumb your premises, would you turn around and say to him, well, I can't actually pay you any money, but I'll put an advert up saying you did it, so you'll get exposure?
Yeah, it's crazy. It's
never happened.
It's one of the only industries where it's just assumed that, like, you know, you don't need to be paid. Like the musicians, they just don't really have any value. And it's even more crazy that musicians playing covers at people's weddings or at functions will be getting paid, like, not huge amounts, but a decent amount, a living sort of wage. But you book an originals band, oh, we can't pay you. I mean, surely it should be the other way around.
I know.
You know, it's just, it makes no sense, but it's been that way for a really long time. I think there are noises that it's starting to change. There's some big name artists like Nadine Shah and members of Radiohead and Guy Garvey from Elbow. You know, they put forward a petition to the government saying, you know, we need to change the streaming laws. Unfortunately, this government doesn't really care about the arts, but let's not go into that. But you know, there's a lot of people feeling this, and I'm having this conversation almost on a weekly basis with people in the industry, yourself, other musicians, you know, venue owners, and everyone is so pissed off. You know,
it's interesting that
it's got to change.
I've noticed, though, it's a very strange thing. Over the last 2 years, there seems to have been a huge amount of bands starting out. There's loads of bands starting out, especially in the north of England and, well, some in the south as well. But there seems to be a big movement on around sort of Manchester and that sort of way again. But there's lots of new independent bands starting out, playing their own stuff, not playing covers. And there seems to be a huge growth in that, which I'm really pleased with, because it's so boring just watching. You watch go to a venue where every week they've got a different band booked in who are playing basically the same covers as the band that played there last week,
I just
just
don't
in a
get
different
it.
order. It's just,
I don't get that at all. I mean, I've never really understood that anyway. Like, I don't ever want to go and see a covers band. If I want, to listen to covers, well, if I want to listen to an artist, I'll just listen to that artist.
I
I
mean,
don't
I
necessarily
like covers.
it's all right to have the occasional cover in a set or something like that, but for me, original music has been my entire life. Always looking for more original music, to just because I'm so hungry for it. Always looking for a new band, always looking for a new sound, trying to push the musical boundaries. Because that's what my life is about. I just don't understand why, like, it seems to be more popular to just cover the same songs again and again and again.
Yeah, I mean, there is this thing of, like, people like what they know, I suppose, but it's just, I've always quite liked the attitude that Frank Zappa had, which was basically play whatever you want, eventually people will like it.
Yeah. It's a good quote, actually. Yeah. Or in our case, play what you want and eventually no one gets it anyway.
No, I love it. I think it's great.
Yeah, I'm joking. I mean, if you're looking for something different, then you can find us.
Here's another video clip.
I've got a box of razor blades. I hear them shining in the sun. I'm gonna get myself a bullet and put it in your gun. You're gonna point it to my head, dear, for all those pretty things you made me do. I'll cut myself away from here, getting over you. 'Cause we've got nothing left to live for. You and I are stones, and you've just got that filthy little smile to stop me going home. I'm never going home. I've got a box of razor blades, just like your teeth against my skin. I can see your knives are out now, but are they ever going in? How well do you think you know me? Can you see a graveyard swoon? Yeah, I've been secretly unfolding, getting over you. Don't you know that love won't ever be the answer? You bring me to my knees, bring me to my knees. And if we drown, we can drink forever. So I just bleed, so I just bleed. You know I keep your name tattooed across my shoulder.
So the big question now is, I mean, obviously we've mentioned the whole thing about the pandemic and about Brexit and all that sort of thing are going to limit your abilities and all that sort of thing. But where would you like to take this from here? Where would you like to see things being in sort of like 5-10 years time for you as a musician and for the band?
For the band, I would just really like to be playing decent venues and being able to fill those venues. That would really be the dream for us. We've got a really good fan base, but it's very dispersed all over the world. Mostly in Germany is where we would have the shows, or we have like the venues being quite full. Not so much in the UK. I mean, yeah, maybe a bit in London in the south, but really what like my dream is to just be able to book a tour with ease, and for our name to be well known enough that we can go on tour knowing that we're going to sell tickets, knowing that we're going to sell out some venues, and just make it into a sustainable career. for us, it's been so up, down all the time. No, you know, there's never been anything that's been secure, and it's constantly terrifying when the music industry changes every 2 years. So, you know, I don't really want to be like super crazy famous. We're not making that kind of music anyway. We're making very niche, very introverted, strange music for introverts, you know. So what I just really want is to just have the name well known enough that we can be in a sustainable band, and just that supports itself, so we can keep creating music videos, keep creating music that we love, and keep connecting with people that want to hear something, you know, a bit weird and dark. That's really it. It's a very simple dream for us. We just want to keep going.
No, that's perfectly fine. I completely understand that. It's interesting. I've always found it quite interesting. I kind of have been into over the years a lot of bands that have had these kind of niche sounds or whatever, and you kind of have this thing for a while that you think, oh, there's only me and I got 2 or 3 of my friends who get this. You know, how are they managing to keep going? And then you finally get to go and see them live, and you suddenly find you're in a place with like 500 or 600 people or more who are all into the same thing, and you think, it's not just us.
Yeah.
There are people out there that get it. You know?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, we've had some wonderful moments like that. There have been a couple of venues in Germany. We played at Super Molly's in Berlin, and that was a sellout show, which was, we were just absolutely blown away, couldn't believe it, you know. So we just thought, oh well, okay, we're doing all right then, just got to keep going, you know.
Yeah. It's reaching people. It's being able to. It's one of the things I can't remember. I read it a long time ago in an interview somewhere. I cannot remember who it was, a musician, who said that he wanted to be famous, but to him, a fame would be walking down the street in a town that he's never been to, and somebody that he had never had any connection with whatsoever came up to him and said one of his songs had touched their life. That would be the ultimate fame.
Yeah, that's lovely.
It is. It's just being able to touch people without ever having had any contact with them is an amazing ability, an amazing thing, and I think it's something that musicians can do better than anybody else. Yeah. Because music has that ability to touch people emotionally.
Yeah, it was certainly the same for me growing up. Music to me was the most precious thing ever. I was just obsessed with it. It was like my refuge and my escape from everything. Growing up, I you know, music was really, really important to me, and then I wanted to create that kind of music and speak to other people. And I do think with this band, Birdeatsbaby, the music that we're writing, yeah, it is kind of special. It's not just your run-of-the-mill sort of rock music. It is quite strange, and it is quite dark, but it's also very personal. Some of the songs we've written are very, very, like, you know, self-describing, and we have had some people, you know, come up at shows and say this song is the one that really spoke to me, and that's for me the most amazing moment of a show, if somebody does come up and say that you know, a song has changed their life or something. It's just, that's why I'm doing it.
I always find it interesting talking to people when they've written songs from a very personal point of view, in a very personal place in their life and at the time of their life, that sort of thing, but it's something that other people can relate to so well, because we all have, if not the same situations in our lives, we have similar situations, or we have situations where we can empathize with the emotions that the person who's written the song was going through, and it makes a connection which wouldn't necessarily be there otherwise, and it helps a lot of the time to be able to connect your experience with somebody else's experience, and feel that you weren't alone in that. You weren't the only one who's gone through that kind of thing, and that somebody else understands the pain you were feeling, or the ecstasy you were feeling, or whatever.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, bang on.
It's a great feeling, and it's a wonderful thing to be able to do. I personally wish I could do it. Never been that blessed, but you know.
Well, you're helping spread the you know, joy of music through your podcast, so we need people like you just as much as we need the musicians.
I try my best, but you know, I have a very soft spot for creative people anyway, but musicians especially.
Brilliant.
Well, thank you very much for being on the show. It's been really wonderful talking
for having
to
me.
you. To everyone watching, thank you for joining us. I will put on links to Birdeatsbaby's YouTube and social media sites, so you can catch up with their music, their videos, and what other things they're doing. If or when you see them touring, go out and see them live and support them in any way you can. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you again. Thank you. Bye. Talking Music with Big and